Good afternoon. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for being part of this very important session. Jean, let's start with you. I understand that earlier this year you were appointed Chief Logistics Officer for the City of Los Angeles to help the city manage the COVID-19 crisis. What prompted Mayor Garcetti to integrate the Port of Los Angeles into the city's crisis response efforts? If you could get us started, Jean, that would be great.
It was three main requirements that the mayor set out at the beginning of this idea. One was to use the great facilities at our Los Angeles International Airport and our Los Angeles Seaport to speed product through to get them to the frontline medical workers in our hospitals. Second, to utilize our great relationships with the manufacturing community and draw them into the public sector area efforts on our PPE movement, and that's the personal protective equipment. And then thirdly, using our connections throughout the state of California to convert manufacturing facilities into the private sector work of PPE was also in front of us. So being able to work the transportation, the manufacturing, and the purchase of these goods all fell into place at the same time.
Technology platforms have you used to help in your efforts to help hospitals remain stocked with PPE equipment and other supplies?
Well, we currently hold the nation's only port community system, the Port Optimizer, which was co-created with the Wabtec company and the Port of Los Angeles. We then created a medical optimizer that was a bolt-on effect to our industry platform here at the Port of LA. And that simply looked at the demand signals of the hospital, followed the order cycle process to fulfillment, and allowed us to expedite product directly to those frontline medical workers.
Great, wonderful. And how has the Logistics Victory LA effort, how has that worked out?
It has been tremendous. Through that vision that you stated from the mayor, we put together about 24 volunteers, mostly right here at the Port of Los Angeles. And to date, we have distributed more than 3.1 million units of personal protective equipment to over 36 Los Angeles area hospitals and 150 skilled nursing facilities. Now, there's still much more to do as we go forward, and we're seeing yet a third wave of the COVID virus here in the United States, but we are prepared from a supply standpoint.
Excellent. And one final question on that note, where have the medical supplies you have procured to date been distributed?
To those 36 Los Angeles area hospitals and 150 skilled nursing facilities. So the people on the ground, the experts who are trying to fight this deadly virus every day.
Great. Let's move over to Hamburg. Jens, would you be able to talk to us about the city's efforts during this pandemic with the port?
Yeah. I mean, it's nearly the same to Los Angeles. I think the ports are critical infrastructure, and the main focus was to keep the people in the port operation healthy, and on the other hand, keep the operation in the same efficiency as it was before, or even better. We all in our chain port network had the big advantage that the digitization was already in place, and it was kind of a stress test to work now from home, to change shift systems, to keep an eye on the seafarers, the change of crews, and all these difficult things nobody has seen from the outside. But we had to manage a lot of these things, not just in the container business, also on the cruise business side, where the cruise business went down to zero. But we also had to bring the crew members back home, and in between bring some back. And all these kind of processes, we also had to synchronize with city governments, authorities, and also with the airport services. And I think so it was pretty much the same as in Barcelona and also in Los Angeles.
Great, thank you. And Jordi, anything to add to that hasn't already been discussed?
Direction to name different things. We, as other ports, and Hamburg, for instance, and Los Angeles, we have a part of our port that belongs, let's say, the city port that belongs to the city. Obviously, we had to coordinate the security forces, or the national security forces, our police force in the port, in order to implement the restrictive measures, particularly during the strict lockdown at the beginning, mid-March. We have also a beach on the port land that we had also is our responsibility, together with the police forces, in order to control in terms of restriction of mobilities, etc. On the other side, we developed very fast a couple of programs also in order to, for instance, assist or give a birthday party, let's say, to kids that live in houses within the port area in mid-March, where there was a strict lockdown, so to be able to go there and have some birthday party for them in the street, without them moving from homes. Also, we gave, obviously, we are critical infrastructure as well, and we were very important in order to provide medical equipment, masks, etc., to the different hospitals, healthcares in the city, and not only in the city, but in the country in general.
Thank you for that. And Frank, would you care to add anything with regards to the governor's relationship with the port during these unprecedented times?
Well, thank you. Just in general, from a statewide perspective, the governor worked and his staff very closely with his Office of Emergency Services, with the Department of Public Health, to set up some guidelines as it related to handing out equipment of PPE. And we had to deal with be precise with our definitions of, for example, essential workers. We worked at that level, trying to identify those folks, for example, first responders, medical providers, those folks that have to receive PPE. And then we also relied on a strong government relationship with the port, with cities, with counties, working with their local elected officials. One thing that I won't mention is that the private sector, the freight industry, was very willing to pitch in a hand. For example, we had excess foods piling up in warehouses due to restaurants shutting down. And the private sector, of course, not being fully employed, we were able to pull together those drivers of trucks to deliver food to food banks. As you may know, there were millions of people needing a lot of food. We were able to formulate those partnerships with the private sector as well. So the governor did a very good job, I believe, of fostering those kinds of relationships.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's move on to port growth is essential in our global environment, especially for ports that are components of major cities. How do you approach your work with your respective cities to plan for infrastructure that benefits both port and the city for the future? Jens, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I always call it like this. Our geographical location is the biggest challenge on the one hand, but also the biggest chance we have. Because if we play our role in a perfect way and we get, how we call it, the social license to operate, the Port of Hamburg, which is located in the middle of the city, has a big advantage. We trust in technology that we can reduce gases, noises, other kinds of emissions like lights, and we have the employees, more or less living very close to the port. You can go by bike to your office or to your working place, and if we implement more and more modern technology, we digitize more. But we train also the people that they use digitization in a proper way, and we are able to use the technology to reduce noises with shore power, or with reducing how to handle containers in a smoother way. That is a perfect precondition to be also successful in the future. And we need digitization to be more efficient because the space is limited. There's no chance to grow inside the city because there is no space available. So we must go on our way of digitization and trust into technology and next steps of technology. And that's our, let me call that, trick to get the social license to operate.
Great, thank you. Jordi, what about in Barcelona? The question was with regards to the plan for future infrastructure that benefits both the ports and the cities.
I think that at least from in our environment and from this Spanish, European, Catalan perspective, I think that growth for the sake of growth cannot be any more an objective of our port, at least. Obviously, we have to generate enough economies of scale in certain activities in order to make services efficient, competitive, and help our customers to become more competitive in the global economy. When I think about the freight port. But in general, growth for the sake of growth cannot be an objective by itself. When I think about when we are now going to approve next month the new strategic plan of the Port of Barcelona for the period 2021-2025, we have different objectives, to more than 50 operational objectives. Some have relations with growth, but only where this growth generates prosperity in terms of job creation, qualified job creation, and helping in making this infrastructure, helping the community in becoming more prosperous and making this infrastructure more resilient to the disruptions that we have been facing in the past years, cyber attacks, pandemic, and that we will be facing in the future. So in this direction, I think there are two driving forces in our strategic plan for the coming future, which in one is insisting diversification of the port activity and differentiation of the port activity. How? Through innovation, through digitalization, through sustainability, etc.
Great, thank you. Now over to you, Jean. What do you say with regards to planning for future infrastructure?
In addition to the industrial infrastructure that we're so known well for at the ports and the digital infrastructure that we described, the Port of Los Angeles created what we call a public access investment plan. And that segregates 10% of our operating income to public infrastructure projects every year. It's a $400 million commitment to our community to build retail, dining, entertainment, and most importantly, access to the waterfront for our families and friends to come and see the nation's largest port in operation every day, but enjoy time together. And this area can help also in building up communities and the work that we're trying to do on education, training, STEM, along with the physical infrastructure. Working very closely with the California State Lands Commission, led by our Lieutenant Governor, as well as Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti and the City Council. This is on top of an investment that was $600 million in the last 10 years, all meant to grow our community and our port's collective relationship.
Excellent, thank you. Jens, I'd like to talk about the next 5 years. What would you see are the greatest challenges for port authorities when it comes to sustainable growth?
I don't want to repeat everything. I think I mentioned already, we have to keep an eye on the trend to going to zero emission ports. I think we did already a lot of things, but especially in Europe, we all heard about the Green Deal of the European Union, and we always try to be a little bit ahead of that trends. And we were part of a OECD study how to reach the zero emission goal. And in Hamburg, we always try to learn from our friends, for example, in Los Angeles or in Barcelona, what they already have implemented, and also the other way around. And yeah, I think there is a must that we go on that way as long as we can and as quick as we can in great cooperation with the city responsible people.
Excellent. And Frank, what would you say with regards to the state of California? Where do you see the state of California assisting the ports for sustainable growth for the future?
We may have lost the feed from HQ,
Well,
Barcelona.
as being a state government, we work through infrastructure funding programs. We have the California Energy Commission, who funds a lot of projects, the California Transportation Commission, the Department of Transportation, the California Resources Board, and our agency for business and economic development. And what we're looking forward to focusing in on the projects that help the sustainability forward. We use a lot of different criteria. First of all, we're prioritizing our corridors to make sure that they're used efficiently, using performance-based criteria. We're prioritizing zero and near zero emission development. We're looking to improve the energy usage in freight facilities, and we want to use existing transportation infrastructure and make sure it's possible. But those are just some higher level statewide criteria that we're looking for on the infrastructure projects.
Excellent. Frank, are you able to talk with us a little bit more about the goals of the California Sustainable Freight Action Plan?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The Sustainable Freight Action Plan was developed under the prior administration, Jerry Brown, and the idea behind it was there were 8 or 9 state agencies that were dealing in the freight industry, and not always communicating. Oftentimes, as Gene knows, sometimes you work in silos, and so we wanted to put more emphasis on a cohesive approach. So we developed the Sustainable Freight Action Plan, bringing the state agencies to work on sustainable issues throughout the freight industry. The freight economy is roughly 1/3 of California's GDP, very important to us, millions of workers. And so we identified several goals. The first one was develop 3,000 zero and near zero equipment and vehicles. The second goal was to improve the efficiency of the freight system by 25%. Final leg was a goal to improve the economic competitiveness of the freight industry. Those were sort of 3 overarching goals that we established for Cal. So within those, we established about 70 plus programs, some already in existence, and identified how we might achieve those 3 goals. And those are still in progress. But as you may know, we continue to come up with additional goals that Governor Newsom has said about. There's Executive Order 79-20. And so we continue to implement those. As general rule, those are the 3 goals that we set out.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Jordi, I'd love to ask you this next question. We'll start with you. Do you see in the future the city port business model growing and eating up your commercial port business model?
It's a very direct question. Let me go back in history a little bit before answering the question. This is a port that has undergone an evolution very similar to my friends from Los Angeles and Hamburg, I guess. Back in the 80s, this was basically a commercial port that was basically dedicated to loading and unloading cargo from vessels. And at the beginning of the 90s, with the Olympic Games in Barcelona, this port, our port, Barcelona, changed, I would say, radically. No, it was no longer a port 100% dedicated to loading and unloading of cargo. We developed two new areas, one in the north, what we know the city port, with restaurants, hotels, marinas for private yachts, etc. One in the south, a logistics activity zone. Of the 102,000 hectares we have at the port, I would say today roughly less than 70% are dedicated to loading and unloading cargo. We have also obviously cruise passengers, ferries, etc. So this is a port that has evolved a lot towards diversification in the last 20, 30 years. The city port has become something very big. No, we broke the frontier between the city and the sea in the 90s. In the last 10 years, we have even gone further in this direction, opening with new marinas for private yachts, with the hotels. So this is something that has happened in the future. And in order to answer your question, yes, I think this will go even beyond in the coming. We have a strategic plan for the next 5 years where we have different activities and installations foreseen already in this area that should grow. And if I look more on the long term, I would say this type of services installation and new things, pre-commercialization, logistics, urban distribution of cargo, innovation hubs, lots of things, no? Electrical mobility centers for the citizens. All this will expand somehow inside what today is the commercial port. So as a summary, in order to answer your question, yes, I think there's further room for development and for increasing this synergy and integration between the port and the city, obviously respecting the demands of security that a freight port and a critical infrastructure requires.
Excellent, thank you very much. Jean, I'd love to get your perspective on how you see the commercial port business model changing with the ever-encroaching city port business model.
Now, the two must always work together. And in an area here like Los Angeles, where we support over 1 million jobs in our region, that will always take the priority to make sure that we can feed, clothe, and house America. The cargo that moves through our port reaches each and every one of our nation's 435 congressional districts. At the same time, those who came before us planned so well to create that waterfront access, the entertainment space, and the public green space that our community had asked for. So the two being cohabitants have worked very well. The next 5 years will be very important as well, as we embarked on the first ever zero carbon plan of a port in the United States. By the year 2030, our marine terminals will be zero carbon. And by the year 2035, our heavy-duty truck community will also be of zero carbon standards. So we have to work to become a market maker and build the confidence of the manufacturers. That will take a lot of community work as well in order to bring that great technology to the port and have a strong focus on the training, reskilling, and upskilling of our workforce so they can be competitive and move with this technological wave in the future as well.
Excellent, thank you. Jens, I know that you work quite closely with the city of Hamburg. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you see the business models converging or differentiating in the future?
Yeah, I think the buzzwords are already mentioned. First of all, cooperation between ports and cities. As Jean already mentioned, access to the water sites. Sometimes we have also some parties like the port anniversary every year. We have cruise days. We celebrate also the port a lot together with the city to get in touch with each other. But on the other hand, collaboration is also very important between our international partners and the cities of our partners. So that's again the point to thank Port of Barcelona, and that's also the reason why we all support the initiative to organize the smart ports as peers of the future here in the Smart City Expo Congress. But the other thing I would like to mention is also without any progress in technology, we will fail. And so we also have to work on that and new chances, use new technology to implement something to avoid unnecessary transport, unnecessary traffic, and also to avoid any kind of emissions. I think that is the same important, alternative fuels and so on. This is important for ports and cities. So we are also working together. And my third point is the human abilities. Educate, train, bring people together, and this kind of what we call a lifelong learning. That is very important. That we always convince our people and also the people in the city that we have to learn again and again how to use the new technology in a perfect manner. I would call that the technology is helping us and not make the life more complicated. And that's my passion. I put my power on from my position in the board.
Excellent, thank you. Actually, let's talk a little bit more about the technology. How are you working quite closely with the innovative technology that the cities are doing? And is it quite different from the innovative technology that's coming out of the port or that you're looking for?
In Hamburg, we always try to be a kind of window for the city. It's if we try to implement new traffic management systems, I think the port is always a perfect playing field to check the technology, because the scenery without kindergartens or something in the middle of the port is less complicated. And so it's a good area to prove new technology, and then we share our knowledge. But sometimes also we do it the other way around. So we only ensure that we do not do things twice. There's a digital board implemented in the city under the lead of the Ministry of Economic Affairs. And there we meet all together with public transport companies, with traffic management, with road construction, with IT companies, also the airport, the port, and so on. And there we share in a project management office with a digital dashboard which technology is right now checked in which area, and then we share the knowledge. So we collaborate again and save a lot of money, time, and yes, we like to learn from each other. I think that is one key factor for success.
Absolutely, very interesting. Jordi, are you able to touch upon a little bit more about the innovative technology from the Port of Barcelona in comparison with the city of Barcelona, and which is driving which and how you're working together?
Thank you. Yeah, let me be very honest. No, here in Barcelona, always when you have those international and European rankings on the ideal cities in Europe in order to set up a startup or companies of this kind, it always appears as the fourth, fifth, sixth city in Europe. No? After London, Paris, Berlin, very often you have Barcelona the fourth place. Rankings, you can have a ranking for anything, and not all are very reliable. No, but in general, it appears as the fourth, fifth big city in Europe for a startup. But when it comes to the logistics sector, it's true that we don't have a very powerful ecosystem of startups on the logistics sector, transport, etc. And this is one of the, let's say, the pillars of our strategy for the coming years. I think here that the Port Authority have an important role to play, and in our case, our Port Authority has an important role to play in order to help in developing this ecosystem of startup innovation, tech companies related to the logistics sector that exists in every other sector in Barcelona when it comes to industry, when it comes to tourism, and lots of major sectors, but not in our sector, to be honest. No, so I think here that the Port Authority has a very significant role to play in order to try to benefit from these ecosystems that work on other industries and other sectors, and try to transform Barcelona a little bit in one of these hotspots in Europe where startups from our sector want to try to develop pilot projects, want to try new technologies. I'm thinking about things as autonomous transportation, digitalization of logistic change in general. Also, sectors that we host in Barcelona, marinas for private yachts, cruise industry, etc. So here I think that the Port Authority, and here we have 3 port authorities here, in our case, we believe we have an important role to play in trying to benefit from this ecosystem that already exists in Barcelona from different industries, and developing and attracting something similar in our port, in our sector.
Great, thank you. Jean, over to the Port of Los Angeles. We were just discussing with regards to innovative technologies and how the port authorities are working with the cities and collaborating, or are you converging or differentiating the different hubs for these innovative technologies, or how are you bringing them together? All right, Frank, actually, let's talk to you a little bit about the governor's office and how the governor's office is able to assist the port authorities and the different cities with regards to the innovative technologies.
Thank you. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we have a variety of different programs, and we for example, within the governor's office of business and economic development, we have an infrastructure program that will allow ports, for example, in the infrastructure projects to apply and receive grants for assisting them in developing the projects. We have various infrastructure programs throughout the Air Resources Board. We look locomotives and railroad companies attempting to get them into more zero-emission locomotives. We work carefully with our freight providers, the trucking companies. As I mentioned earlier, the governor signed the executive order that is mandating 100% of in-state sales of new passenger cars and trucks be zero emission by 2035. That's a heavy lift. What we do is we provide, and in addition to that, 100% of medium and heavy duty vehicles be zero emission by 2045, and drayage trucks by 2035. Again, that's a heavy lift. So what we're going to do is develop guidelines and work with a marketing program to try to bring those goals to
yes,
fruition.
2 more, please.
And so we hit on those types of high-level criteria for assisting ports and the freight providers to meet the goals that we've set out.
Excellent, great. So moving on to the top 3 enablers for smart ports and smart cities. Let's start with you, Jordi. What do you consider to be the top 3 enablers for both?
Let me say 5, okay? Because we have managed to give us, a few years ago when we all started talking about smart cities and smart ports, the first reflection you had is that we were dumb in the past and that we have become more intelligent. So let's try to find out a little bit how smart, what meant smart, and each one of us may have a definition of what smart means. Some people may say more focus on technology, other more on environmental sustainability. I guess each one of us might have an idea of what smart means. We, in our strategic plan, we have tried to develop this concept a little bit further. And when you mentioned these 3 enablers, so what from our point of view. And there's a sentence in Italian which is very funny, which says "Si non è vero è ben trovato." And the Spaniards here might understand what it means. No, so let me put it this way: so when we say those enablers, smart, how this is the way we define it. No, and probably it can be also some kind of prioritization, no? Smart, starting by the S, no? Sustainable first, no? And on the three pillars of the sustainability: environmental, economical, and social. M, multimodal. A, agile. R, resilient, and T, transparent in front of our customers and our society. No, so if we manage to do these 5 things, no, we are going to be a smart port and for a smart city and for a smart community.
Great, thank you very much. Jens, 3, 5, 6, pick your number. The top 3, the top enablers.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat everything I already mentioned at the end. Cooperation, technology, and human abilities to train on, educate the people. That it's most important. But I always try to follow a vision. And I was asked by a journalist some years ago. I said 2050. I believe that the ships spend less noise than a seagull, so the birds are louder than the vessels, something like that. That's kind of a vision. We need a sustainable business model, and we need a sustainable port development, and therefore we need a new blueprint for the ports of the future, and that's what we are working on together with the community of the city, because it's an integrated system. Because of the workforce, because of the traffic flows, because of the consumption which is necessary for the city. So we call that Portrait of the Future. That's one of our working groups in our Chain Port group, together with other ports worldwide, because we think if the ports are working most efficient as possible worldwide, then we create the right port picture of the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Frank, any advice from the governor's office with regards to the enablers?
Well, from a statewide perspective, I think clarity and certainty is important. We have to provide, in our regulatory framework, we have to provide the certainty that the private sector needs, including the port, and the clarity in definitions so that they can move forward with confidence. We also have to work diligently in assisting the ports achieving solutions to their problems. There's been some discussion within our ports that there's a market share loss. We have to work with them on figuring out that issue, how we might be able to assist them, and certainly. In terms of an enabler, data collection and sharing, I think, is a very, very big issue. I think, Gene, with the Port of LA, they've done a very good job of putting together some data and using it in a very smart way. We have to make that happen across the board. We have to make sure that we exchange knowledge and learn from our colleagues. And finally, I think we have to figure out how we're going to speed up transactions and make them more reliable. As the COVID economy moves forward with e-commerce and the creation of more and more warehousing, we have to figure out how we do that sustainably, but it's at the same time how to make them reliable and speed up the transactions for the private sector.
Thank you. We've had some technical difficulties with Gene over in LA. I'm not sure if he can hear me now, but if he can, if you could share the top 3 enablers for smart ports and smart cities. I think we are still experiencing those technical difficulties, so next we will move on to Jordi with regards to a new question. Jordi, can you talk a little bit more about the World Program Climate Action Plan? We've had a few questions from our audience.
Yes, I'll be glad to. Precisely now, there is a meeting taking place now that I cannot attend because of the smart ports, which I'm very happy to be here. Anyway, and this is an initiative that was launched by different ports. Los Angeles, Hamburg are two of them, and Barcelona is another one. Was launched, I think it was December 2018 or September 2018. Maybe Jens can correct me. I think it was at the end of 2018. It was initially launched, let's say, by the port of Rotterdam. It was a proposal to 12 leading ports worldwide in order to try to, I would say, to speed up, to accelerate what we are all doing.
How are we doing with time?
What we're all doing in terms of trying to decarbonize the logistic chain. No? To summarize a little bit, because there's probably people from the public which are not specifically from our sector. No? So trying to speed up the different initiatives, projects, pilot projects that we are all doing individually, and develop some joint research in order to speed up all this. No, and we know we have the targets of the IMO, of the European Commission in Europe, 2050, 2030. But I'm pretty sure we all agree that we have to try to go faster. And this initiative was launched in 2018. We created 5 different working groups, one on onshore power supply, another one on alternative fuels, another one on terminal equipment. We have also the Port of Vancouver member, Port of Antwerp, Port of Rotterdam, Port of New York, New Jersey, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Yokohama in Japan. But it's one of the examples of, I would say, how ports are trying to go a little bit beyond what multilateral organizations are doing, because I guess we all agree that we cannot wait till 2030, 2050 in order to reach certain targets. Despite ports are a small, we are a very important actor of the logistic chain, but we account for very little of the carbon emissions that are emitted throughout the journey of a vessel going from Shanghai to Los Angeles, for instance, or from Shanghai to Hamburg, no, or Shanghai, Barcelona, no. So very little of the carbon emission that is emitted throughout the journey takes place in ports. Despite this, ports like Los Angeles, they have technical problems. They could explain it better than me. They have achieved enormous success in developing OPS in all their container and cruise terminals and reducing CO2 emissions enormously in these ports. And we are all in the same direction. We in Barcelona are going to have in the next 2, 3, 4 years some container and ferry terminals with regular connections for vessels. Hamburg is working on the same direction. So this was the purpose of the World Port Climate Action Program, not to speed up, to accelerate what we are all doing separately, let's say, and try to learn from each other, from our individual experience. Probably Jens can say, and Jen, if he managed to, I can say more about this.
Well, I'm afraid, thank you very much for that. We're actually going to dive a little bit deeper into the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Marseille a little bit later about the green smart ports. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That is all the time that we have today. I appreciate all of your thoughts and comments and your time. So thank you very much. And to the audience, just want to let you know that if you've missed this session, you can catch up on demand on the Smart Ports TV. Thank you very much.